This is Mike Gerace, my partner Carlos Trigo on camera. Today we're interviewing Vietnam veteran Peter J. Stivers. It's November 23rd, 2003. Alright, for your camera, will you please state your full name, birthday, and hometown?
Peter J. Stivers, from Middletown, New York, and I was born in 1950.
Okay. Can you please tell us your rank and branch of service in which you served with?
I was Lance Corporal. I was promoted to Lance Corporal when I was in Vietnam. I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I went in November 11th, which was the day after the Marine Corps birthday, and I got out in September, late September of 1970, due to the first combat troops being pulled out of Vietnam.
Okay. When you were you enlisted or were you drafted? When you
I enlisted.
You enlisted?
Yeah.
Okay. How did your family members react when they heard that you were going to enlist?
Well, they were a little upset. I had quite a few brothers and sisters that were in college at the time, and a lot of them were definitely against the war in Vietnam. I had an older brother that was in the Navy and another brother was in the Army, so they were kind of behind me because kind of being a troubled kid, they knew maybe the Marine Corps would straighten me out. My uncles were hoping it would straighten me out too.
What type of education did you have before you enlisted?
I went to Catholic school for 7 years as a young kid, and I probably put 4 nuns into early retirement there. But I went on to high school, and I graduated in 1968. I played football, I wrestled, I ran track and field, and I had a great time in high school. I enjoyed it, you know.
When you heard about the war, did you agree on the grounds that they used to enter the war?
I'm sorry?
Did you agree with the grounds on which the U.S. entered the war, such as like to prevent communism and?
Probably a little bit. More or less. I don't know. At the age of 18, I was just confused. I didn't know where I was going to go after high school. I probably would have liked to go on to college on a wrestling thing or a football thing, but you know, I ended up just going in the Marine Corps because I had friends that were going in the service. Unfortunately, some guys that were killed and wounded. So I just thought it was my turn, and you know, it was a tough decision, but I did it. You know, I figured it was the best thing for me.
For training, what type of training did you have to endure in order to succeed through the ranks in which you are?
First of all, for the first 2 weeks in boot camp, the sadistic drill instructors, although I love them because they straighten me out, they mentally try to break you. Physically, a little bit, but more so mentally. You had to do just everything perfect the way they wanted things done. And when I first came down into Paris Island that night, I looked out on the island and I looked at all these buildings. I thought I was going to prison, to tell you the truth, but you know, it was rough. It was rough, you know, but everybody else had to go through it, so you know, I just did what I was told, and I got beat up a lot, but you know, I did my best, and it taught me to have respect, discipline, and to be maybe a more responsible person, because I needed it.
Would you say that you were in a good relationship with your drill instructors and whoever was ahead of you in command?
The guy I hated the most, he ended up really starting to like me because I could do 100 push-ups in 2 minutes. So.
Was he a drill instructor, or was he just a higher ranked soldier?
No, he was one of our drill instructors. He was with us from the day one to the day we left Paris Island, and I hated his guts, but you know, he was all pure Marine Corps. He just, you know, you had to do things his way, and you know, I got beat up by him quite a bit.
Was he a previous war veteran, or was he just...
I'm gonna say yes. I think he did do a tour of Vietnam, and he was from California. And he was a big, tall, skinny guy, but boy, he could be mean if he wanted to.
Was there any special types of training they had to go through in order to perform what you did during the war?
There's just tons of training we went through. It's unbelievable. I mean, in the Marine Corps, you got to learn how to fire every weapon. My MOS was an anti-tank assault man, which, you know, you fired all these different weapons. You had to knock out tanks. Luckily, any tank that was in Vietnam would have sunk in mud and wouldn't have got nowhere because of the climate over there and the terrain. We rarely ever saw tanks. We had them for support once in a while, but the North Vietnamese, once in a while, they would have them up in the mountains, and they would try to bring them down in and use them. And that was a scary situation if you ever ran into, you know, something like that out in the jungle. But we never saw any. We lucked out.
What about other enlistees, people you stayed with during boot camp? Were you in good relations with them? Or was it kind of a need to know?
You didn't get too close because, you know, you were just worried about yourself making it through for those 3 months of training in boot camp. But, you know, once you got out of boot camp and they started calling you a Marine instead of a maggot, you know, you felt more like a soldier, and you had more slack time where, you know, you could get to know your fellow soldiers that were with you and that you were going through the training with and that stuff. It was kind of fun because, you know, certain guys, you know, he kind of had to just, you know, motivate them a little bit, because me with sports, I knew what it was like to do what I had to do, where some guys never had that type of training in football or wrestling, and you know, you could help. That was the thing. It was called teamwork, and you know, sometimes you just try to help each other out. Sometimes they helped me out. They had to straighten me out.
So at the end of your training, did you plan to go on towards a more specific training, or did you plan to go right over to Vietnam?
Well, at the time, I told these guys I wanted to be an electrician. They said, okay, we're going to put you on the lines. Yeah, they put me on the front lines instead.
So you never got to pursue an electrician?
No, I worked that for a couple years with my uncles, and then when I went into the Marine Corps, that's what I told them I'd like to do, or I'd like to be trained in, but it didn't matter, you know. I had a feeling my destiny was to be a soldier, a foot soldier, and, you know, I think, you know, that's what I was trained basically for. They said, wait till you get out of the Corps, then you can go to college and be an electrician.
Were you surprised with that decision they made to send you to the front lines, or?
No, not really. Certain guys got those other MOSs where, you know, they were reporters, or they drove trucks. They went to radio school to be radio men. But they all had to go where I was going, because, you know, some of them were support, most of them were support troops. A lot, well, quite a lot were in the infantry too, besides. I mean, even if you were a radio man, you know, sometimes if you were in motor transport and you messed up, you did something, they'd take you out of there and put you right into a grunt outfit, which was an infantry unit, and, you know, so be it.
Can you recall anyone specific from your training that you trained with, other than drill instructors?
Well, I trained with all the soldiers that I went through boot camp with, and then we went through infantry training, which was another 3 months of training, and then we came home for a month, and then we went on to Camp Pendleton out in California, and we went through another month of training there, which was jungle warfare and things like that. But if I could just say something, I just feel like we weren't really trained for what we were going to go through. We should have been more trained for jungle warfare, and, you know, smaller unit skirmishes and things like that. We should have went out more in smaller units instead of one big company because we made too much noise. The enemy always knew where we were. They always heard us coming. And, you know, I think we could have been trained better in smaller groups, but that's how they did it back then. Sometimes it was probably better to be with more soldiers than be just in a little group, because then if you ran into, you know, a large enemy unit coming through and they had you surrounded or whatever, you know, you were in trouble. And you know, I can remember times being chased out of the mountains, only like 6 or 8 of us guys, and we were like pinned down for the whole day. We couldn't move till it got dark. And then when it got dark, we had to run down this mountain into the rice paddies, and they were still right after us. And you know, luckily we got out of that one okay. But
Do you think that the training, the way they did it, was part of the reason why there was so much struggle through the war? I think it was insufficient.
Probably. I think we could have gone over there and you know, been a little bit smarter in fighting the enemy on their terms. Again, we were just young boys. You know, you're talking 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And of course, I told you about the guy that was only 15 years old that got killed. But the thing was, what I'm trying to my point is, being at that age, we were just young. We never went to West Point, or we never went to these schools where you study, you know, military battles and strategies and all that stuff. Although, you know, I love the Civil War. I always liked studying that in high school or reading books about it, or even World War II books. I used to like reading military books, but yeah, you more or less had to learn on your own terms when you got over there. You know, it was like a on-the-job training situation. You know, you either did what you were told, listened to the guys that had been over there for 4 or 5 to 10 to 12 months before you, and if you paid attention, certain situations, you know, you knew what to do. Not that it was going to save you, but you know, you were a little bit smarter in how you know, walk down a trail or up through the mountains or through villages. You know, you had to be really careful. But the training was good as far as, you know, breaking down weapons, cleaning them, making sure they were clean, firing them, and you know, just knowing how to use them. As a matter of fact, I think it was in boot camp, we had to be blindfolded once, and we had to take our rifle apart. We never called our rifle our gun, or you got slapped good for that. But you know, we had to take our rifle apart, which was the M14, and which was a very accurate weapon from, like, say, 200, 300, 500 yards. I mean, I could put 9 bullseyes out of 10 out from 500 yards with this weapon, and I never fired a weapon in my life. But the training was good. I mean, you know, going through all these different obstacle courses, going out to different ranges where you learn how to throw grenades and you know, attack things as a platoon, and you know, things that you had to know. I mean, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, and sometimes, you know, we were whiners about our training because we'd have to go 10, 20 miles in full packs and rifles and up these big hills, and sometimes they double time us just to see how tough we were. And of course, the little guys, we always fell behind. While the big guys were walking down front, we were running just to try to keep up with everybody, and you know, it wasn't fun. But it was good training. I mean, and the food was good.
Do you think the mental training you had to go through was harder than physical?
I would say probably the physical training first, but the mental training, because we were so young, sometimes I don't even know if it did us any good till we actually got over in Vietnam, and then we were put in that situation where anything goes, anything can happen. You know, just make sure, you know to hit the deck and take cover, you know, and be smart and not fall asleep at nighttime. That's one thing, you know. You never fell asleep when you were on watch, and if you did, you got beat good for it. As a matter of fact, we had one sergeant from Texas. He would come around and check the bunkers or the lines at nighttime, and if any soldier was asleep, he took his .45 pistol out and he pistol whipped your face till he broke your nose and knocked your teeth out. And you know, that's what happened to some guys there. That just, you know, they fell asleep when they shouldn't have. They should have notified somebody in their platoon. You know, if you can't stay awake, you don't fall asleep, because that's the way a lot of our guys were killed, because the enemy they snuck right up on us. They were smart, you know. That's when they always hit us. Most of the time it was at nighttime, and they knew our positions. And if somebody fell asleep, or a couple guys fell asleep, that was it. We were done, you know. We had no chance. They had us, you know. But that's like my friend, this Dan Bullock, Private Dan Bullock. Unfortunately, he died when he was 15. But as much as I liked the guy, he fell asleep on watch the night he was killed. Him and this other guy next to each other out on this airstrip, and they just got overrun by about 90 enemy soldiers. And unfortunately, the poor kid did his best to help fight the enemy, and he was actually shot in the back with a AK-47. But yeah, that was a no-no. That was always a no-no. As much as you know, we humped our gear and our rifles all day long out in the rice paddies. No matter, you know, certain days we would march for miles and miles, right up to our necks in mud and water, and you know, in bad situations, and making contact with the enemy, and then at times we'd have to attack the enemy. We'd have to go right in there and try to wipe them out, or you know, we never stayed unless we were pinned down, and we would call in artillery support, or the jets would come in and bomb the village or whatever. You know, we always, you know, we worked as a team, and you know, it was a tough situation at times, but I learned, you know, hey, you just got to hang in there and hope for the best. And of course, you know, pray to the man upstairs, because he's the only one that's going to keep you here. He's the only one that's going to save you.
When did you learn you were shipping out?
Huh?
When did you learn that you were shipping out overseas?
I think that was like the last night in boot camp before the day of graduation. Our drill instructor came in, our senior drill instructor came in, he read everybody's MOS, which is your military occupation specialty. And of course, you know, the 0311s, those were the infantry guys, those were his heroes. The other guys, get out of here, I don't even want to know you. But still, that's when I knew. When they mentioned my name, they said 0311, Westpac orders. Westpac, where's that? Oh, that's out towards California. That must mean I'm heading west, you know. And sure enough, I had 30 days off. I came home, I saw my parents, and they were a little nervous. And of course, I got in a big fight in a bar one night. The night before I was going to California, I got in a big fight in a bar, and it wasn't my fault till this day. But I was arrested, and my father had to come up to police headquarters and get me out. And he just told them, hey, he's a Marine, he's going to Vietnam, you know, he's got his orders, and they let me go. And then the next day I was on the plane, and you know, I hugged my mother, because I loved her a lot. And, my dad, you know, shook his hand, and I flew out to California. That was my first time coming into California, and it was neat because I ran into a lot of my friends that I went through infantry training and boot camp. And, you know, it was just good to see these guys because we had that, I'm trying to think that word, that closeness as a team or friends and bond. Yeah, we were bonding as soldiers, and we knew what we were going. We knew what was up ahead, and but we, you know, until you get there, the reality just didn't hit you till you landed right in that country, and then again, you know, you were going to be there for a whole year and 1 month and 15 days. You know, it was a pretty long tour of duty, but I landed in country. We went to we flew into we flew into Hong Kong, not Hong Kong. That's from R&R. Got in a big fight there too. But we went to Hawaii, and I said, "Wow, this is great, man! I'm coming into Hawaii. Smell the tropical air, the flowers." We got into the airport and we didn't move. They told us to sit right on our butts, and we weren't moving nowheres. And then we stayed there for 2 hours, and thank God they got us out of the airport because we were harassing everybody. And people were kind of scared to look at us because they knew we were Marines and they knew we were going to where we were. And then from there we went to Okinawa. That was a long flight on the plane. That was real long. And we stayed in Okinawa for about 1 day, and were harassed by all these soldiers coming back from Vietnam, all these guys that had already done their tours. We got our shots, and then we flew into Da Nang the next afternoon, and we heard that the place was getting rocketed, the ammo dump blew up, which it did. But we got in there all right, and then we went up to this area north of Da Nang, and next day they told us to go to the LZ. And I said, "LZ? What the hell's an LZ?" "That's where the choppers are coming to get you, dummy." So I went down there. I had the breakfast of my order, whatever I wanted, and then we got on these helicopters, and they just flew us way to hell into the country. And as we were flying over the country, you know, you just looked down from 10,000 feet up. You saw bomb craters all over the place, and most houses looked like they had like 3 or 4 swimming pools, although they were bomb craters filled up with water. And then we flew into the 5th Marines base, rear base area, which was called An Hua. And there was a big coal mine there. There was a place where they had these German doctors there and nurses. They ended up, the nurses ended up being captured by the Viet Cong, and they never found them. But anyway, we were there, and the first day there, I'll never forget this. I was walking down the mess hall. I'd already got my uniform, my rifle, and all that stuff. You had to wear like this heavy flap jacket and a helmet, but it was hotter than, it was real hot. It was terrible, you know. I'm walking down to the mess hall with this friend, and all of a sudden I said to him, I said, "What the hell do we got to wear this damn helmet and this flap jacket? I can't stand it. It's so hot out, you know." And right after I said that, the sirens, the air raid sirens went off, and we got rocketed with about 3 of these Soviet rockets, and it made a direct hit on one of the supply tents. It killed 6 of our Marines, and well, anyway, I went running. I dove over this thing and dove down into a ditch. Me and this guy dove into the ditch, and we got back out. Once the all clear sirens went off, we got back in formation to go into the mess hall, and this guy looked at me. He says, "Now you know why you wear the helmet and the flap jacket." I said, "Yeah, now I know." So that was a little scary, you know, but I got over it.
The Tet Offensive of 1968 is considered the turning point of the Vietnam War. What did this action teach you about your enemy, and how do you prepare for it?
Well, it taught you that they could hit at any time, and because they had the people out in the country, more or less, and in certain city areas, they protected these guys. They, you know, hey, they were their own flesh and blood, and they were their brothers, and you know, we were like the bad guys in their backyard. They didn't like that. And I can't blame them. I mean, if somebody came over here and they try to take over our country, sure, but we had to be ready at any time, because in the Marines or any Army unit, you could be flown to an area that's bad, hostile right away, where they got a big major offensive going, where there's just a lot of trouble, a lot of enemy soldiers trying to get in, destroy, and kill people. But I had a friend. He got sent to Saigon. He was in the Marines, but he was up north with the Marines, and then all of a sudden Saigon got hit in the Tet, and then he got flown down there with his unit, and he made the front page of all the newspapers in the world. He was down on the street. He was all shot up in his legs, and I went to Catholic school with this guy to high school with. He was really a great football player, but he was one of the guys that came to my house before I even joined the Marine Corps. This was after he did his tour in Vietnam. He came over and he tried to persuade me not to join, but I said, hey, look, I'm proud of what you did, and I look up to you because you're a couple years older than me, but I said, it's my turn. I'm going in, and you can't change my mind. I'm going to do what I got to do. And it's funny, at that age of only 18 to make a big decision like that, and not knowing that something like that was going to really affect your life for the rest of your life. I mean, sometimes just I really have things that bother me, but I just I try to deal with it the best I can. I don't know, maybe sometimes, I don't know if I need to sit down, maybe see somebody that can, like a psychiatrist or somebody who's professional that can deal with the type of problems I might be having. Sometimes I have like bad memories of it, and what they call flashbacks. As soon as I started doing a painting of PFC Dan Bullock, I did a painting for his sister. She was only 13 when he died, and I met her last summer, so I told her I'd do a painting of him, and it just came out really nice. I wish I could have brought it in today, but it's not framed. And when I was doing this painting, every night I was sleeping, I kept seeing him coming in my bedroom and just standing there looking at me and trying to say something to me. And but other than that, I'm proud to the fact that I did a real nice painting of him, and that we named the street in Brooklyn after him. And it was just a beautiful ceremony. Unfortunately, 30 years later, the guy, or let me see, was it 30? No, 34 years later, the guy, of course he's dead, but hopefully, he's living in peace right now, that we at least did something for him. And it was a nice ceremony, and I'm just happy that I was there to stand up and say some nice words about this kid for the only 3 weeks that I knew him. But I'm going back down to New York City to see his sister and bring the painting down to her. I can't wait to give her this painting I did of him, and I know she'll really like it. So certain things like that, I guess, maybe are my own personal therapy for me. I've done about 4 paintings of Vietnam, and I like putting my heart and soul into everything I do with a paintbrush. And but I end up giving these paintings to soldiers that I know, just so they can have something to remember. Usually I put myself in the painting too with these guys, so they, like, hey, there's Pete, and of course I signed the painting. I'm proud to sign the painting. But next question. Let's get off this subject.
You stated in your transcript that your base was nicknamed Rocket City. Was it more of a defensive, where the enemy would attack you, or just hit and run maneuvers?
We were out there where this base camp, it was just where they wanted to come in from Laos, which was above Cambodia. And it was a perfect entryway into the Da Nang area. Now, Da Nang was a huge military, naval, Air Force, Marine base over right on the ocean. And that's how they came off the Ho Chi Minh Trail down into these mountains and valleys and rice paddies and villages. And of course, they were working with the Viet Cong, because that was their own area where those guys were from, the south. But the North Vietnamese soldiers were starting to infiltrate pretty heavily, and that was part of the An Hoa base area, was to stop that infiltration with, just a regiment of Marines. A regiment of Marines would be like 3 battalions. You had 1st, 2nd, and 3rd battalion. Each battalion maybe had 500 to 1,000 soldiers. And we would always be out on operations at all times. Once in a while, certain companies would be pulled in to guard the rear area. That was your duty, rear area. Guard duty at night. Work details all during the daytime. And then the other companies from the other battalions, they'd be out up in the mountains and the villages and the rice paddies, just conducting operations, sometimes working with different Army units, but mostly Marine units. And sometimes our sister companies would work together, and we'd be gone for weeks, months, until, we were just, they'd finally bring us back into the rear area for some hot chow, a warm beer. They said it was cold beer, but it was warm. And then just when you started getting comfortable, like around Christmas time, like all our packages were being sent from home, and that next day we would just move right out, man. Go down to the helicopter pads, get on the choppers, and they fly us out of there, and that was it. We're lucky if we got a hot shower, a hot meal, a warm beer.
Was your base ever directly attacked, or was it more of a staging grounds for offensive maneuvering?
No, it was always being attacked. Up above this base camp were just mountains of caves and triple foliage canopy with where the enemy soldiers could just hide. They were underground. They were just hidden well up there. Although they sprayed a lot of Agent Orange up there to take the foliage off the trees. And of course, at times I heard they were spraying like 2 or 3 times a day from these planes, and we kept getting all this crap on us. And of course, it might have been Agent Orange. A lot of the guys I was with have problems now with certain diseases, like diabetes, of course, which I have. I don't know if I got it from being in Vietnam, although, I did contact malaria when I was over there for 3 weeks. I was really sick for 3 weeks, solid weeks. I get out of the hospital, they fly me right back to my unit, and first day I'm there, I'm in a big ambush by this river, I'm blacking out, the rounds are flying all around me, and I still wasn't over my malaria. And then, we had diseases like dysentery, immersion feet, ringworms, jungle rot. I had that all over me. I was a mess. And but you did what you did to survive. I mean, you changed your socks every day if you were smart. Our uniforms used to just rot off us after a while because they were just because the climate over there was humid. It rained for 4 months straight over there from October to like January. As a matter of fact, one time it rained 65 inches of rain in 9 days. I mean, the whole place was just like one big puddle or one pond. And but the nice part about that was they flew our whole company out to Red Beach in Da Nang, which was a resort area for R&R, and that's all we did there was fight. We We were just fighting officers, enlisted guys fighting enlisted guys, guys that were just causing trouble, that were no good soldiers. We were just beating them up and, you know, trying to straighten them out the best we could. But that was our 3 days there, and it was right back to where we, you know, we had to go out and patrol. Another thing I didn't really say was most of the time, being in a grunt outfit, you were always patrolling 3 times a day. We would send out patrols all over the place, small size ambushes we'd set up. We'd sit there all day just in the jungle waiting for the enemy to come through, and sometimes they would make contact with you first. At nighttime we'd set out observation points, or more or less like a night ambush, and those were kind of scary because now it's dark out. You know the enemy's going to be coming looking for you because we're in their backyard, and we more or less just had to be quiet, real quiet. Nobody could light cigarettes up, or you know, nobody could snore. A guy started snoring, you had to wake him right up and say, "Hey, you gotta stop snoring, man. You're making a lot of noise." And you know, it was quite an experience.
When you first arrived, what rank were you? Were you still a private? Or?
Yeah, I was just I think I was a PFC. I finally made rank out in Pendleton. I think they kind of gave it to the guys. They felt sorry for us. Actually, I think I should have been a corporal when I came back from Vietnam. Just the experience you went through and all the hard work, you know, to stay alive and, you know, to be a good soldier. You know, you know, at times you did things that you normally wouldn't do. I mean, you just went out of your way to be tough, I guess.
What was your first combat experience in which you directly confronted the enemy outside of your base?
We were once out in this place called the Arizona Territory, and it's probably every Marine's nightmare because it was just terrible out there. It was all rice paddies, villages, foothills, mountains, but it more or less was very flat. Like that's probably why they call it Arizona, but there was just a ton of enemy activity out there, and we were coming through this area one time by these tree lines, rice paddies, and there was a pagoda, and pagoda, I guess, is like where they bury the enemy, or where they bury the Vietnamese people above the ground, and then they have like these monuments there, and it's kind of neat looking, and then all of a sudden we walked into like a U-shaped ambush. They had us on both sides and they were shooting in front of us. And I kind of got excited. I jumped up on this little foothill above all my buddies in front of me, and I just took my M16 on automatic and I fired it right over their heads. But I was actually shooting out by the tree line, and these guys looked at me and they said, What are you doing? You're going to kill us." I said, "Look, no, they're over there behind the trees." But that was my first thing out there, my first like engagement, skirmish with the enemy. And it was scary, don't get me wrong. It was scary, but, you know, I just jumped up and started firing my weapon on automatic, and these guys gave me this look like, "Get out of here. What the hell are you? We got to have you with us?"
So would you say the overwhelming feeling was fear at that time?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, some fear, but then, you know, hey, here we go. This is what I've been trained for, and you know, it was surprise, of course, because it was an ambush, but, you know, I just said, hey, here's my chance to prove that I'm a soldier, and a good soldier, and but there were other times besides. I mean, I think probably the worst thing that scared me were the booby traps. You know, we were just in an area, wherever we went there was booby traps. And And again, I think probably 50% of our guys were killed over there from booby traps. I mean, we'd hit one, then you hit another one, and by that time, you know, everybody's flipping out, and then you hit another one, and this is in one day. I mean, you know, they just knew where we were coming. And but then, a lot of times we were lucky because a lot of the guys that did walk point, see, I walked point for about 8 months over there. When I was told to walk point, I was a point man. And that's, you're the first guy that comes down the trail, excuse me, whether you're in the rice paddies, whether you're in the mountains, whether you're walking through a village, you know, you're the first guy that's got to find them before they find us. And I had good eyes. I could see really good. I could hear. I had good hearing too, but I had good eyes. I had that extra sense where I could just tell, man, if something just didn't feel right. And you know, a lot of times we would surprise them before they could surprise us. And that was one of the keys to more or less, you know, surviving, because they just that was their trick. They fought that sneaky guerrilla warfare that was, you know, they just they were smart, they were sharp, you know, and they knew the land better than us. You know, it was all new to us coming into these different areas. The terrain, you know, I mean, crossing rivers, going up these steep mountains, and you know, we had to be quiet, but sometimes we weren't, you know, and they knew we were coming, and that's when they had a chance to set up and get ready for us and that stuff. So, but luckily, you know, we were tough. You know, we had guys that were over there 1 tour, 2 tours, so they were trying to help us guys to learn what was going on, how to be ready, and hopefully not make any of those mistakes that would cost us, you know. And but that was one of my jobs, and I never really mind doing it, you know, because I said, if I'm going to go, let me go now, man, because I'm ready. And you know, but if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to do my best to save the guys that are behind me. You know, I'm not going to, you know, hopefully do something stupid.
Excuse me, get a time check. 42. Okay.
Sorry. All right. We rarely hear of the Viet Cong's armored divisions, and you say that you were an anti-tank assault training specifically. Did you ever come in any kind of contact?
No. The only thing they you know, they would have like reinforced bunkers, and we would have to knock them out with certain weapons, you know, and sometimes we had to just fight our way over to where they were. We didn't have the weapons to take them out, but we would manage to clean them out sooner or later, you know, and using grenades, throwing grenades down into these bunkers or down into these tunnels and that stuff. You know, that was the best way sometimes, unfortunately, to get them out of there, you know. Sometimes we try to warn them, but, you know, sometimes we had to just do what we had to do. Being frustrated, probably, or being angry and mean, and, you know, maybe the day before we ran into a bad situation, like the booby traps. We had, you know, maybe 1, 2, 3, 5 guys really wounded, hurt bad, or killed, you know. I mean, that worked on your mind after a while, where, you know, I hate to say it, we had that hatred for, not just for the Vietnamese, the enemy soldiers, but for the people themselves. We didn't trust them, we didn't like them, and, you know, sometimes we were really just mean. I mean, here we are, just young kids, young boys, but we could be mean, you know, we could do things that weren't right, but that's what war does to you. And I mean, my squad leader, he was incredible. He was the greatest squad leader we ever had, but right down to his toes, he was like the meanest guy I ever met. He just, man, he was vicious and violent, and but, you know, he had to survive for himself to get out of there, and we all looked up to him. We all respected him because he he knew his stuff, you know.
Do you think attitudes like that will help you through the war?
Oh, sure. Yep, I think there had to be those guys that were just still mean on you, almost like drill instructors. They had to keep you in control. They had to keep you in check, because sometimes we did stupid things and we ended up getting hurt. I mean, I seen a guy once, a sergeant. He comes up and he shoots one of my friends right through the stomach. He didn't mean to do it. He was just fooling around with his weapon. And he come up to this guy and just said, "Bang, bang, you're dead." And all of a sudden, the weapon went off and he shot this guy right through the stomach. And luckily, we were at a good place where we could get a helicopter in there and get him right out. And the guy survived, but,
Wow.
you know, we had guys that turned in weapons at the arsenal back in our rear base area. And, you know, one guy got his head blown off one day, and my friend was right there when it happened. And, you know, this guy had problems to begin with his family back in Pennsylvania, but, you know, when he came back and he jumped off this truck, you know, we could tell there was something wrong. And that's when we sat him down and he kind of explained to us what happened back in the rear area in Anwa. And it took a little while to get him back to his normal self a little bit, but he was our smallest guy in our company. We called him Mouse. He had red hair, but he was a tough little kid. And you know, he had been there. He re-upped for 6 more months over there. He already did his year over there, and you know, he wanted to. Usually, when you re-up for 6 months, they try to give you a decent job in a place like that. You know, like working in the mess hall, working in loading bombs on planes, which is, you know, easy duty. But they sent him right back out with us, and he wasn't happy. So, you know, finally we talked to a few officers, and they brought him back out, back into the rear base area where he could be just working the mess hall. And, but he made it back alive too, luckily. I ran into him a couple times. He come up from Pennsylvania to New York to see me, and today I don't know where he is. You know, just lost contact with each other and that stuff. But
What type of role do you think that the air cavalry played throughout the war?
the air cavalry, well, I'm just really starting to learn about them. You know, they were mostly Army units, and although you had your Korean units there, your Korean Rock Marines, they were air cavalry too. And but mostly from watching this movie, We Were Soldiers Once with Mel Gibson. I mean, that's what those guys were. That's what they were trained for. And God bless them all. They were good soldiers, man. And again, they were young, just like us when we went in. But they got the first part of they got to find out what it was all about before we got there. And unfortunately, you know, they ran into a tough situation. They ran into a lot of tough situations. I mean, I don't know. Same thing with the Marines. I mean, we fought hard, but then sometimes we were just outnumbered. I mean, you know, like I said, they knew the terrain better than us. They were fighting that guerrilla warfare where I think we were just trying to survive or trying to engage the enemy. But where are they? I mean, you know, until you run into them by luck or something. Sometimes we try to fight with that conventional warfare, which it just didn't work because, you know, you were too exposed to the elements, and you know, they could hit and run you, take off, and you never find them, or they ambush you, then go down into these tunnels, and you know, you couldn't find those tunnels unless, you know, you got right then and there, you saw them going down. And that's when we, you know, knew where they were. But Air Cavalry, that was a good movie. I enjoyed that movie because actually, you know, a lot of times that's what you ran into. I mean, they were there in '65, but you know, when we went into Cambodia, you know, they were hiding all over the place. They were like just regrouping in Cambodia. That's where they regrouped, and that's where they had all their weapons stockpiled, and you know, they had them buried, and they would just set up these major operations, then walk over into Vietnam and more or less you know, attack us at certain base areas. Or I mean, they must have been well planners too. They knew what they were doing. I mean, some of these guys, they've been fighting for years and years and years. They fought the Japanese, they fought the French, now they're fighting the Americans, and you know, you gotta have good commanders in order to win battles and that stuff.
As a point man, did you personally come across any booby traps or have to do things like defuse them?
Oh, yes. I'll tell you what, it's just amazing. I'm still alive. I got, you know, my arms and my legs, and I never really got injured bad by any of those things. As many as we more or less found. We found, and I think this was almost like the last week I was over there. And this one black soldier, we were going to sit on the side of this road for road security for the convoy. And this guy was going to pick up a bamboo stake just to make it like a tent so we could get out of the sun. And I told him, I said, don't even pick that up, man, until you check it out good. Which he did, you know, so I went over there, and sure enough, there was a piece of wire wrapped around it and a grenade underneath the ground. It would have exploded right in his face and maybe would have messed up a few of us guys.
Wow.
So anyway, that was cool. This guy was a young kid, and he was just, you know, new in country. So my friend was fooling around with something else. There was like a piece of wire sticking out of the ground, and I kept telling my friend, I said, don't mess with that. Let's wait for the engineers to come up the road and clear the road for the convoy. And he just kept pulling on this wire, and all of a sudden it made this funny noise even, and we all yelled booby trap. And I went running across this road, and ran right across this road. I dove in the air, I did a flip, I landed on my hands and knees, and when I got up, all of a sudden I was pushing down on something. I heard this air make a noise, and I saw the sand like go down into the ground. I said, wait a minute, you know, I got a booby trap here. I'm nailing right on a booby trap, and I had my hands on it too. It was a box mine.
Wow.
And so I told all my friends, I said, hey, you guys, get out of here. I got one over here. So what I did with my hands, I just kind of cleared the sand, and I saw where they had the explosive, this big explosive thing underneath it. So I kind of just lifted my legs up, my hands, and got off it as quick as I could. And about, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, the mine clearing guys come up the road, and I told these guys where we found the booby traps over on the other side of the road, and we found this one. I just found this one on the side of the road here, and so the engineers just said, hey, get out of here. We're gonna blow these up for you guys. And when they blew the box mine up, this guy said it would have blown me about 50 feet in the air, and they would have been picking pieces of me up.
Wow.
He says, you're lucky it didn't go off on you, that you know. Actually, the only thing that was on it were my hands. That's right, my hands were on it. So I didn't have the weight of my body pushing it down because it was pressure sensitive. And, you know, that was just by luck, you know. But, you know, every time we went down this road, of course, the enemy soldiers were coming in at nighttime. They're booby trapping this, booby trapping that for us. And, like, you know, after a while, we kind of got tired of it, you know. So one time we went down there and we took some C-Rack cans, we put some grenades in them, you know, pulled the pins out, I put them upside down. So the next day when they came in, You know, we're sitting there eating chow up the road, and all of a sudden we heard this big explosion. We said, okay, we got one. I mean, that probably wasn't, that wasn't something we were trained to do, but it's just something we did because we got tired of being harassed by these enemy soldiers. And we just did a lot of things. We learned little tricks, you know, and sometimes at nighttime, like when we'd set up along a trail, and it was only like 6 or 7 of us, I'd take the C-rack cans and I'd put stones in them, and then I'd put them on the trail, and I'd cover them with stuff to hide them, so when the enemy soldiers would come down there at nighttime, they'd trip them and make a noise, and give us a little chance to react to it, you know, and we played their game too, you know.
How did you avoid things like booby traps? Did you just leave them for engineers? Or?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, we had our own guys. We would blow them up with grenades or something, or we'd have a rope like in, you know, tie it to a rope and then pull it, and, you know, but that would be just one guy. Everybody else would be down, you know, you'd be down low, so you didn't hit by any of the shrapnel. But a lot of times, I think the only way we really picked them up was by the sun hitting like a wire, you know, would just tell you that there's a trip wire. Half the time you'd hit the trip wire, you know, sometimes they'd go off, sometimes they didn't go off. And, you know, a lot of times you're just lucky to find them. Most of the time you didn't find them. Most of the time, that first guy down the trail was the guinea pig, you know, and, you know, just, but then again, at times, if we could use the trails that they were running on all the time, and they couldn't booby trap those trails that much because, you know, they were using them just as much as we were. But then again, sometimes when we'd come into a village, or we come back on a patrol, the same way we went out on a patrol, these enemy soldiers would get it like up on a hill, and they would put a big artillery round like in the middle of the rice paddy dike where we were walking, and they'd try to hit it with a electrical device, you know, and you know, that happened once too. I mean, this black guy and this Spanish guy, he was the radio man, the Spanish guy. The black guy was the squad leader. About 10 of them. They were way out in across this river earlier in the day. The sniper that was sniping after us in the morning killed one of their soldiers, missed the guy the first shot, second shot got him through the back. So they waited about 2 hours for a helicopter to come out to get this guy. And then finally they were coming back. They called over the radio that they were going to come back in just to let us know, not to shoot them coming into our lines. And just after they left, we saw this cloud of black smoke and we heard the explosion. I said, oh my God, somebody got it bad. So my lieutenant told me to take my squad. He says, get out there as fast as you can and, you know, see what's going on, man. And so we started running, about, I don't know, a squad of us, and we got almost over to the river, and we saw the black guy, and we saw the Chicano with the radio, the Mexican guy, and the black guy, he was white. That's how scared he was. He turned white. That's how scared he was. The concussion knocked both of these guys down, just flattened them. But lucky the shrapnel, the way it was planted, went straight up and nobody got hurt. So the Chicano, he got knocked down just like the black guy from the concussion. And when he got up on his feet, you know, it was like the smoke was clearing from the explosive, and he couldn't believe that him and the black guy didn't get hurt at all. You know, I mean, but the black guy, you could tell, man, it was going to take a couple days for him to come around because he was scared right out of his shoes, you know. And the Mexican guy, he was kind of actually happy because he said, wow, we're still alive, man. I had to look for my hands and my arms, and I couldn't believe it, you know. I picked myself up, and but the sad part was, too, that one of their guys was killed that day, and they had to wait out there for about 2-3 hours for a chopper to come in and get the body, and
We're gonna take an intermission, change takes.
sure.
You want anything to drink, or? played a larger factor than many think, or do you think it was just something that?
Oh yeah, I think so. They were just all over the place. I mean, you know, sometimes you'd run into one, but it wouldn't go off because it was there so long. I mean, you know, they used to dig these big holes with the punji stakes, and those are very dangerous to step on. But I think the ones I didn't like were the ones that were artillery rounds. You know, if they had a big artillery round, oh man, that was a mess. A lot of times they had a grenade or a couple grenades, you know, just to really not just wound you, but wound a bunch of guys. And they were clever. They were great soldiers. They were clever. We respected them, but you know, when it came to a battle, you know, we just did what we had to do to survive. And there were so many great battles that even went unmentioned about this war, which is surprisingly, whether it was Army or Marines, you know, there was just a lot of great battles. I mean, unfortunately, people were killed and hurt, but, you know, they were determined to knock us off this little piece of land, and we were determined to just stay there to the last soldier. And you know, luckily I don't think I ever really was in that situation. There were times where there were rumors of the enemy coming down out of the mountains, and they were going to really fight us on a full, big-scale battle. And luckily, most of the things I went through were like skirmishes, small skirmishes, like, you know, platoon size, or, you know, although one day we did run into, we ran into over 100 of them. It was like a bee's nest. And then, of course, lucky me, I was the first guy to go down over this hill, and there was like a little peninsula on this river, this big river, and that's where they were hiding down there. And, you know, I think we killed 19 of them. We captured 30 of them, and luckily, only one of us was hurt. This other platoon started chasing these guys along the river, and they opened up on us with a 50 caliber. So these Marines started running back the other way, and one guy got shot in the ass. That was it. And he got medevac. That was what we call the $1 million wound. You know, he was done. He got shot right where it hurt. And another time we were, this is kind of an interesting story. We had this one guy, he'd been over there for about 4 months. You know, that's how these stories are stuck in my mind, like, you know, my memory. Just, we were on a river once, and we were playing cards. You know, we always played cards, this deck of cards, and of course one of us would have to watch the trail and make sure, you know, we were protecting our flanks, that the goops couldn't, or the Khan couldn't sneak up on us, or the enemy soldiers. And so this guy comes down, he's watching, he comes down where we're playing cards, he goes, hey, to the staff, or to the squad there, he goes, I got 3 soldiers walking down the trail here, coming right at us. 2 of them are in like camouflage Marine Corps uniforms, but the third guy's in a black pajamas with a straw hat. He goes, and they're carrying weapons. He goes, well, get out there and challenge them, you know, before they get on top of us. So this guy waited till they came around this turn, and he just jumped out on the trail and yelled, "Lada!" you know, which means halt, you know, in Vietnamese. And the first 2 guys, they just dropped their rifles and they turned around. They started running as fast as they could down this trail. Well, this guy with his M16, he had it on automatic. He shot 2 of them. The third guy got away. But when we went through their personal possessions, these enemy soldiers, we found the guy had a lighter. It was one of our Marines that got killed probably. This guy must have fought him in a combat situation. When the guy was dead, he stole the Marine's lighter off him, and it had Paybacks, a mother on it, you know, and so anyway, finally these guys come marching in. We come marching in, we're on like on this security by this bridge overlooking this river, and he come in, he was a big hero because he had just killed 2 enemy soldiers. Everybody was shaking his hand, patting him on the back. So later on that night, this guy's on watch, and unfortunately he fell asleep on his watch. We had this big guy from Texas who was a sergeant walking around checking the lines. He caught the guy sleeping, and he took out his .45 pistol and just pistol whipped this guy's face, broke his nose, knocked his teeth out, and the next day the emergency helicopter came in, picked this guy up, and flew him back to the United States. He was done.
Wow.
Yeah, but you know, one minute he was a hero, and the next minute, you know, he let down his own guys. Maybe because he was just tired, or you know, sometimes we would march all day, and then you had to stand like 2-hour watches at night, you know, because usually it got dark over there, probably like around 7 o'clock, and we'd have to stand watch till like 6 in the morning. So between 4 guys, we all had to stand like I think it was like 2-hour watches, you know, and after humping rice paddies all day and going up through the mountains, you were tired. I mean, you know, you're carrying 100 pounds of gear on you, and because you had to, you know, you had to carry all this stuff with you, and especially your ammunition and your grenades, and you didn't want to run out of ammunition. And I think only once over there, one time we were getting close to running out of that type of supplies, and it was during the monsoons, and I'll never forget it because I think it was in January. The sun had come out. We couldn't believe it. It had been raining for 4 months, and all of a sudden one day, hey, the sun's coming out. This is a joke, you know? But then within a couple hours, the sun went back out and it just started raining again like it did over there. And we finally were supplied, thank God, because we were getting down to like only one magazine full of rounds for our rifles, and that's dangerous, man. That was scary, but they resupplied us. I got a pretty good story once. We were being resupplied by this helicopter, and they dropped off all the supplies. We were way out in this, out in the boonies, I would call it. Rice paddies, rivers, all this stuff, jungle. And I was helping this guy lug all these boxes of sea rations back to where our main rear area was, and we were going to cross this big stream, like, and this guy said, "Hey Pete," he goes, "Hold up, man." He goes, "Sit down, sit on your box." I sat on my sea rat box. He goes, look what's coming up this stream," and all of a sudden we looked, and here comes this snake. I couldn't believe the size of it. It looked. And I'm just guessing. You know, this is kind of like maybe 20 or 30 feet long, and I mean, it had to be like this big around.
Wow.
And we watched it, you know, and just like we kept watching it swim up this thing past us. And finally, this friend of mine goes, you know, that's one of those anaconda snakes, one of those jungle snakes. I said, "Wow, never seen one of them before." So that was just kind of neat the way we ran into stuff like that. Another night we were up on this hill, and we were sitting for a night ambush. We were way the hell out by these mountains, up in these foothills. And of course we all sat down, we were playing cards, and we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden we heard this noise of a wild pig just coming in to attack us. And finally, you know, it scared the hell out of all of us, but we jumped up with our weapons and we started shooting this pig. And we didn't kill it, but we could hear it. It was running down this hill. We were throwing grenades. We could hear the grenades landing, and it must have taken some shrapnel, and we could hear it squealing, and it was knocking over trees, and it was just making this funny noise. We were all laughing, but our lieutenant down below, he called us up on the radio, says, you know, "What's going on up there?" And he thought we were being attacked by the enemy, and we said, no, it's just a wild pig. But it had these teeth on it that if it would have got a hold of us, it would have ripped us apart. And And then we got attacked by the water buffalo over there too. The water buffalo, they didn't like Marines. They just didn't like the way we smelled, because we smelled different than the Vietnamese. But they attacked us too. You know, one time we had to shoot a water buffalo, and it took about maybe 3 magazines and a couple of grenades to take that thing down. The thing was built like a tank, and but he was coming at us. He wanted to do some bodily harm, but you know, it's just amazing. Some of these stories that I'm bringing up, things that happen that you never imagine would happen to you like in a combat zone or a different country where you're living for a whole year. I got another good story too. We were out in the Arizona territory. Of course, we hated this place to go because we knew whenever we went there, somebody was going to get really hurt bad. But we knew there was a lot of enemy soldiers out there where we knew we were going to get a lot of action in. So one day we had these 2 snipers with us attached to our company, and we had just landed in this village area. We were surrounded by all these rice paddies. And we're sitting there, and these snipers are kind of adjusting their scopes, and and they're looking way out across these rice paddies. And all of a sudden, the guy said, "Hey, I got 3 enemy soldiers. Yeah, come here, you guys." And we had binoculars. We're looking through these binoculars, and there was these 3 guys. They must have been sitting down having breakfast, and he shot 2 of them right away with the rifle. He just shot them both. But the 3rd guy took off running across these rice paddies, and of course the sniper, was his job to kill the 3rd one. So he's trying to find this guy. You could see him crawling along this rice paddy dike, but all of a sudden we lost him for about 5-10 minutes. And then finally, I mean, this is a true story. This is no bull. This is no bull. All of a sudden, here's a water buffalo, built like a bull, walking across this rice paddy with 6 legs. We said, "Wait a minute. I thought they only had 4 legs." Well, that's where that 3rd enemy soldier was. He was hiding, trying to get away from us, hide behind his water buffalo. So, of course, the snipers, they took out the water buffalo, and then they got the 3rd guy, because, I mean, the scopes they had on these rifles were just unbelievable. They could just scope in on an anthill, and it was just almost impossible to hide. And unfortunately, sometimes, the enemy, they had the same type of scopes. I mean, a lot of our guys were killed from snipers, but nothing you can do, man. You can only try to find out where the shot came from, and then call like an artillery up there on the hills to try to take them out and that stuff. But that wasn't any fun sometimes. I didn't like being sniped at. As a matter of fact, just before I left country, we were out in the field one day, and we were sniped at, and we just couldn't move for a couple hours. We had to hide. We had to just lay in the water in the rice paddies. We couldn't move because every time you moved, the sniper would shoot at you, and he was pretty close to us. So finally, we all got up and we just made a run for it. He wasn't that good of a shot. We just ran so fast, and we were like zigzagging so he couldn't hit us. And of course, like boys, we're laughing, thinking it's a joke, but actually, this guy's trying to kill us. And but I think that same sniper, he shot that guy. That same day that we're across the river, and the guy that, the first round missed him, but the second shot, when he turned this way, got him right through the back. And I mean, I didn't know the guy personally, but that's when those guys came in, and they got booby trapped on that rice paddy dike that same day. And of course, we had to run out there to make sure they were okay. And we were like a response team, and I don't know.
You stated that you were a tunnel rat for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of orders were you given to carry out?
Doing that type of job, number one, it wasn't fun. Nobody liked to do it because you're going down into some stinky, smelly tunnel, and it's filthy. You don't know if there's snakes down there, rats, and then you got to go down there and find enemy soldiers, or but that was one of my jobs, because I was one of the smaller soldiers, and we had to clear these villages out sometimes, and they had these bunkers, more or less like bomb shelters, where the Vietnamese would go down and hide down there, and just in case they were getting artillery was dropping in on them, or the jets were coming in with airstrikes, that's where they would go, excuse me, with their young kids and their families to be out of harm's way. And so when we came through these villages and we were being shot at, we had to clear these villages out, where we had to go into these hooches and go down into these hooches, and you know, sometimes there'd be like a tunnel, they'd find a tunnel, and you know, hey, come here, Stivers, we need you. And it's like, oh man. And the officer, my lieutenant, or one of the guys who had a pistol would give me a pistol, and I'd go down there with just a pistol and a flashlight and try to find out what's going on down there. And some of the time we'd see enemy soldiers down there, so we'd throw a grenade down there and kill them all. You know, it was terrible. You know, we killed them and that was it. Well, we tried to talk them into coming out first, but if they didn't want to come out, then we'd throw the grenade down there. But yeah, that's where the Vietnamese, even at nighttime, they slept down in these bunkers just for their own safety, because you know, hey, when an artillery round goes off, it just wipes out everything, or a 200-pound bomb off a jet will just wipe everything out. So I got a good story too. This was a real good story. My best friend Mike, he was our radio man. One night we got orders that we were going to move from this village back up to our this Hill 65, which was like a little artillery base, and we went up there. They had hot chow, but we were down in this village for a couple weeks, so they said, okay, you guys, tonight we're moving back up there. So we're all sleeping down in this village, but my friend Mike, he went down into this little bunker, like a bomb shelter, with this old papas on. So around 2 o'clock in the morning, we got word, saddle up, we're moving out, we're going back up to Hill 65, which was probably, I would say, maybe 3-4 miles away. You know, we had to march on foot, our whole company, to get back up there. So anyway, I'm looking for my friend Mike, and I'm saying, Mike, where are you? Then finally, the lieutenant says, hey, we gotta move. Everybody accounted for it? And I'm saying, no, we're missing our radio man. Well, where the hell is he? I said, I don't know. So finally I said, I think he went in that bunker over there with papas on. That's the last time I saw him. So I went over, I was yelling the guy's name. Still, we didn't know where he was. So finally, our lieutenant says, hey, sorry, we're moving out. We got to leave him here. Hopefully, you know, he'll make it back in the morning. So sure enough, we get all the way up on Hill 65, and of course he's my best friend, so I'm worried, you know. I feel bad about the whole deal, you know. And a couple hours later, here comes this soldier running up this hill with all his sleeping bag and all this gear, and he's crying and he's all pissed off at the world. And it was Mike, and so he comes over, and he was all pissed off, saying, you guys left me down there. I said, we were yelling, we couldn't find you. The problem was he was way down in the ground where he couldn't hear nothing probably. He was probably sound asleep with papas on. And but thank God, you know, we got him. He found his way back. Luckily, the guys that were guarding Hill 65 didn't shoot him, you know, because any noise, man. But he yelled who he was, and then he was yelling at me like it was my fault. And but that was a pretty good story. I mean, I always like telling that story because it's just amazing. It could have been me. I could have been left down there too, you know.
In these tunnels, did you ever come face to face with an enemy, or were they mostly deserted?
Most of the time they had a whole network of different ways to get out of here, get out of there. Sometimes they waited for you. Sometimes they wanted to duke it out with you down there, or shoot it out with you. And but you know, luckily nothing ever happened to me. I lucked out. I mean, although I seen a friend of mine get his eye blown out one night, or one day we were going through these bunkers. There was 4 of them, and I had already cleared 3 of them. And I was just coming out of this one to go over to clear this other one. I seen this guy. I saw an explosion. I seen this guy just come flying out, and unfortunately, he got his eye taken out with shrapnel. But you know, we found underground complexes that would fit a whole company, hospital, up in the mountains there, and you know, they'd have like bamboo running up and down through the mountains where they could get water out of the streams. When they built their fires, they'd have it so the smoke could dissipate here and there, so you just wouldn't see, you know, exactly where they were. They were very clever. I mean, you know, they lived off the land. These guys, I mean, they lived like sometimes we said rats, but they were just, you know, that's what they did to stay alive. I mean, we had that air superior, what's that?
Superiority?
Yeah, superiority over these guys. I mean, you know, and sometimes they would just find a grid and bomb it, whether there were soldiers there or not. So they never knew when or where we were going to come after them, especially with our Air Force, you know. I mean, at times you could hear the B-52s heading up towards the mountains, and man, I mean, it would shake the ground. Miles away, the ground would be shaking. That's how you could hear the bombs going off. And other times you could see them heading towards the north part of the country, up towards North Vietnam, and you know, delivering their payload and all that stuff. But that was another whole different thing. I mean, those guys, I mean, of course, we all know a lot of them were taken prisoners, and that's one thing I'm happy. I was never taken prisoner. You know, there were times where I got lost. Our patrol, where we were lost, we didn't know where the rest of our company was, and that's all we had to do was run into a large group of enemy soldiers, and who knows, we would have had to fight. I would have fought to my death. I would have never been taken prisoner. I mean, they would have had to wrestle. It probably would have been 12. These soldiers had to wrestle me down and tie me up. But you know, I wasn't going. I figured, hey, you know, I'll die. I'll die. I gotta fight my way out of here to my death. I'll do it. You know, I'm not going to be taken prisoner. And there was just a couple times where, you know, I didn't know. We were lost, and we kind of had to backtrack to find where. You know, where the rest of our main outfit was, and we didn't want to yell at nighttime, because then you're giving your position away. The enemy soldiers would say, "Hey, there they are," you know, and run right down the trail after us, and then we'd give off our position and our main unit position too, and I remember one time this sergeant, the staff sergeant, wanted me to take a little sampan boat. We just found where these enemy soldiers had just were eating. They must have took off running because they heard us coming. And there was like this little stream. And this guy wanted me to get in this sampan and go down by myself and see if I could find where these guys were hiding. I said, no, thanks. I said, you know, I was kind of like disobeying orders, but I knew better. You know, that was stupid. I didn't want to take that chance. And I just said, look, you know, if you want to go, you can go.
When President Nixon, when he decided to pull American troops out of Vietnam, did you think the Vietnamese would accept the terms, or do you think they would do as they did and attack again?
Well, I wasn't sure. I was just hoping that, I guess I was just kind of hoping for all our soldiers that the war could be over, that we could come home safely, you know, and but in a sense, it was good for me because, see, my tour of duty was 13 months and 15 days, but I ended up just serving 11 months because of Nixon pulling the troops out, the first combat troops. I was on that first thing of combat troops. Normally, we flew home in a plane, in a jet from, you know, Vietnam back to the United States in one day, which I didn't care for that either. Especially if you were right out in the combat zone, and you know, you were seeing a lot of action from day to day. And but luckily, me, my buddy Chip, and a few of my other friends, we sailed home on a ship, and I was just so happy when one night I walked into my platoon area and the corpsman come up to me and says, "Hey Stivers, you lucky son of a gun, your orders came in, you're leaving." I said, "What? Get out of here. You're kidding me." He goes, "No, no, no."
Mhm.
Says, "Your orders came in, Pete. You're leaving, man." Luckily, two of my friends, Manny and my friend Mike, they got their orders. But these guys, they flew home on a plane. Or me, I don't know. I was lucky. I came home on a ship. It took us like 17, 18 days to sail across the Pacific Ocean, which was great. It was a way for a lot of us to kind of calm down and, you know, just say, wow, you know, thank God we're still alive, man. And, you know, that was a better way of getting home, I think, because it gave us time to kind of figure things out a little bit. But, you know, I was kind of hoping I was going to get like a total discharge from the Marine Corps, because I only had, I think I had 11, I didn't have too much more time to do, but I missed it by 11 days, so I still had to do more service time at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for another 6 months. But then I did finally get out. I got an early out. I got another early out. Luckily, I get the combat troops pull out, and then I got this early out thing for the convenience of our government, because there was just so many soldiers coming back that they didn't have jobs for us or places for us to stay, so they just gave us a choice of either staying in the service or getting out. And under honorable discharge, I figured, hey, I'm going, man. I'm out of here. Although I missed the service, I really liked it, and you know, it was a good experience for me. I would tell any young kid today, if you're not sure what you want to do with your life, man, go in the service, man. It'll just make you a better man. It'll make you a better person. And, you know, you learn a lot of good things. You make a lot of good friends, too.
What was it like when you came home? Was there a big celebration? Or?
No celebration whatsoever. I came into my house and I had this tan. I looked like I was burned at the beach there with sunburn, but I came in with a nice tan. And first thing my oldest brother said to me, he wanted to know how many enemy soldiers I killed, like it was a game. I said, "I'm sorry, but I really don't want to talk about it." My sisters and my brothers got in a big argument with my uncles, because some of my uncles come out there. They knew I was coming home that day, so they wanted to kind of, you know, see me, see how I did and all that other stuff. And they were all for the war. My sisters and brothers were all against the war because of their, well, we were all my brothers and sisters, we were Catholics. You know, we went to Catholic school, Catholic high school, Catholic college. And I respected their views, you know. I respected their views. I told my two brothers, they were both conscientious objectors, and for those guys, I was happy for them, you know. I was just happy for them. I didn't want them to go through what I had to go through. And, but still, you know, I was bothered by a lot of things, you know. I had a lot of problems when I got back. I started drinking. I started doing drugs. And, you know, I didn't have too much respect for authority. I just started going downhill, like, and, you know, finally, I straightened myself out. It took years, and, you know, I was having nightmares, flashbacks, bad memories, and you know, I just felt like I wasn't going anywhere with my life. But I think, you know, I think the man upstairs said, "Pete, you know, I'm going to take care of you," and you know, you got a lot of things to live for. So, you know, what are you waiting for? And, you know, I still see my friends, some of my veteran friends, and it's always great to see those guys or talk to them on the phone. But coming back was pretty tough. I mean, I just had certain things that really bothered me, you know, as far as, you know, what I had to do over there, killing people, and, you know, something I got to live with. I'm going to have to live with the rest of my life, and I don't know what the, I'm just happy I made it back alive. You know, I've been successful in my life. You know, I'm doing a lot of good things today, and I finally stayed at one job for 30 years, and I'm going to retire next year. I coach wrestling. This is my 14th year coaching wrestling, high school wrestling, and I'm an amateur artist, which I really enjoy painting. That's good therapy for me, and I like them challenges. You know, I have a lot of good hobbies like hiking, bike riding, mountain biking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, you know, traveling. I like all that stuff, you know, and I'm raising my family on top of that. That's another full-time job, just to, you know, raise a family and making ends meet, staying out of trouble with the law, and even though I'm going to be 54, I'm still, sometimes I see myself getting in situations that I don't like, but, you know, sometimes I don't know if I can avoid them. I mean, it's just, it's a dog-eat-dog world out here, and, but again, you know, I want to be somebody that's a good person. I don't want to have people saying, you know, that guy, he's trouble, he starts fights, and, you know, it's time to grow up too. I mean, that's where I kind of like wrestling practice, because I can go up there and wrestle with these young guys, and, you know, they look at me like they want to beat me up because I'm an old guy, but I give them a good match, you know, and it's a lot of fun. I like being around kids.
Who do you think are the unsung heroes of Vietnam?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of them. There's an awful lot of them. And although today, I think today more so we're getting a lot of respect, you know, especially from, you know, the older people in this country, but yet, you know, the young people in this country are starting to say, hey, those guys did what they had to do, you know. I mean, unfortunately, yeah, there was a lot that went to Canada, there was a lot that protested. A lot of these guys went to college. You know, they come from well-off families, good families, but yet, you know, I guess they had the right to protest, but what upset me was, you know, they just didn't give us any respect. I mean, when we came back, I mean, you know, we just did what we did. I mean, if we didn't have a military, you know, our country is so open to anything today, like, you know, like 9/11, there's an example. I mean, if we don't have a strong military, we have to train our young boys the best we can. I mean, you never know when they're going to have to go off to war, and I mean, that's just the way the world is. I mean, but I think I finally received a lot of respect, and it's a really nice feeling, and you know, just it's really appreciated. You know, if anybody says, "Hey Pete, welcome home," you know, it's like, wow, you know, I know you were a soldier in Vietnam, weren't you? And I said yes, and you know, most of the time, you know, I like to talk about it. But sometimes I feel sorry for these people that have to listen to me, because you know, I got a lot of stuff tied up inside me that, you know, it's always going through me, and all these memories. But I don't know, I worked a lot of jobs too. I mean, when I got out of the service, before I went in the service, I worked a lot of jobs. I wasn't a very stable person. My brothers and sisters, they were all off to college. You know, they all had good family lives, good jobs. Me, you know, I was like the guy who worked on the garbage truck here, worked out in the onion fields, worked in concrete, you know, building foundations, or, you know, I worked some hard jobs. You know, I finally got my life together. I mean, after so many years, it was just time to, you know, to break a lot of bad habits and, you know, just do good. I mean, that's what it's all about out there today.
Knowing the outcome of the war, would you do it again?
If I had to, I'd go again. You know, any war, I would go for our country. I don't care. You know, this is just a great place to live. In this country here, you don't really understand that till you go to another country, and especially in a bad war thing or whatever situation that's going on there, you really learn to love this country more so because, you know, things are under control in this country, and, you know, there's a lot of good jobs, good education system, food for, you know, there's a lot of food here to eat. Instead of those sea rats. You know, there's just a lot of good people in this country, and a lot of different nationalities. It's very interesting. You know, that's what I liked about the Marine Corps, my experience of living and training and with other different colors of people and from different backgrounds, and hey, some poor guys, some rich guys, you know, middle class. We got along, and you know, we put our lives on the line, and you know, we did it, and I'm not bragging about it. I just, you know, it's something we did, and I'll never forget this experience. And a lot of people said, you know, you wait and see when you get out of here, you'll never forget this, and you don't. I mean, it's just I work with veterans that have went through the same thing I did, or they were there, and we compare notes, and we have that mutual respect. Even if we don't get along with each other at the job, we still, you know, we have that mutual respect for what we went through. The commitment, the dedication, the training, you know.
Okay. Before we close up, is there anything that you'd like to say to anyone who thinks about enlisting, or who you think is the most misunderstood thing about the Vietnam War?
Well, I'd like to put that all in the back, the Vietnam War. But I do feel that I think every person in this country should serve in the military. Whether you're a female or male, there's a lot of good jobs out there. There's jobs that have to be done. There's that they need people. The more the better. I mean, I just see the way the world is today, and I think, you know, we have to have a strong military for protecting our country and protecting all these other countries. I mean, and what gets me upset is a lot of these other countries don't really appreciate, you know, what all the blood, all the American blood that we've sacrificed for their countries just to free them, and that's kind of like, you know, when I was in Vietnam, that's what hurt me, was kind of like, here we are, we're trying to do the best that we can do to protect you guys from the enemy, and nobody appreciates it. And then again, you know, all the corruption that there was then, maybe there's still a lot of corruption today. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. But hey, you know, that was my rude awakening into this world, what's really going on, and again, I was only 19 when I was over there, and most of the soldiers were. That was the average age, and we found out that it isn't just a nice, easy life, safe world until you really find out the whole thing, what's going on out there. And still today, I mean, we've got clashes of cultures and religions, and I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to straighten this world out, All I know is I just hope, I can be a productive member of society and, do good.
That concludes our interview with Lance Corporal Peter J. Stivers on November, excuse me. We'd like to thank him for his time. And